So we were leading for quite some time a prayerless church growth church. So our focus was primarily on the guest experience, not the God experience. And so that, famously a pastor said many years ago that really kind of set this standard of thinking in the American church. He said, I want to build a church that people far from God love to attend, right? Which is
Mm.
great. We all want people that don't know Jesus coming to our gatherings, hearing the gospel, meeting Jesus, being transformed. The problem with that statement is, what if guests love coming to that church, but Jesus doesn't? What if he doesn't feel wanted or loved? What if he doesn't feel ministered to? And so I feel like so many churches that are building like that, they're not even thinking at all. That was me for many years. Like,
Mm.
no, my job is to grow the church and win people to Christ. The Lord is the one that does that. And he does that when he's put first. And so we had repentance and unlearning around that. And we get to conference week, and it was like our local church, but all these other local churches were on this 21-day fast coming into conference. And then conference week, we get this, I'm in prayer and I get this word, pack a bag. And I'm like, pack a bag? What does that mean? Like, and I didn't even know what that meant. I like, what do you put in the bag? How big is the? But basically, it was a metaphor like get ready for a meeting to start and not stop. And just like Asbury wasn't planned, we had this conference, but we sensed like there could be a session or something that happens. And so, sure enough, on our guest speaker, David Thomas from Asbury, he reaches out to me that day right after staff meeting and says, Mark, I haven't done this ever in 3 decades of ministry, but I've moved my flight back 2 days. I sense a meeting's going to start and not stop. I'm like, really? We've had a lot of guest speakers. I've never had a guest speaker tell me that. Okay, all right, let's see what happens, right? So anyway, Saturday night comes and consecration, the service at the conference started late because in consecration, there was so much confession of sin and repentance and tears and consecration. We actually started the conference late. And David leans over to me and he says, Mark, in all of our days at Asbury, we never had consecration like this.
Wow.
And so we all kind of had this sense like God was going to do something. And then we had a pastor that was supposed to lead a prayer moment and they couldn't make it. Their kid was sick. So my wife just stepped up to kind of like fill in the gap. And the Lord gave her a spontaneous prophetic song. And that spontaneous song just kind of set the room. And then God just started doing all kinds of stuff. And Gen Z, it felt like he was really pointing at Gen Z and then all these testimonies. And it felt like it could have gone on for days. But we knew that Jesus isn't building a conference, he's building his local church. And all these pastors have to go back to their own church on Sunday morning and preach. And we were meeting in another local church and they got to meet on Sunday morning. And so we told everyone to go back, hey, take this to your churches. And then on that Sunday morning, 18 minutes before church was supposed to start, Kevin, without a worship leader, a pastor, nobody on a microphone, 18 minutes before church starts, the room erupts in worship. And it was like heaven on earth. All you could hear was the sound of weeping and worship. That's all you
Wow.
could hear. And it went
Wow.
on for over an hour. And then we kind of like got people seated, explained what was happening. First service bled into the second service. We're 6 hours in and it feels like nobody's leaving.